I think a lot of women in particular have this feeling. I had this feeling that if I was too self-promotional, that people would think that I was not being authentic. But I think it's the opposite. I had to really train my brain to think, you know what, go do that speaking opportunity. Go on national TV because you are that. You're doing it to drive business and ultimately, as a business owner, drive revenue. And that was a aha moment where I was like, you should be doing this. You need to do this for your company to grow and for your company to succeed.
Welcome to Camera Confident. I'm your host, Shirley Engel, former TV correspondent turned entrepreneur. Tune in to master what to say, how to say it, and how to create buzz for your brand. Whether you're hitting record for the first time or trying to land major media opportunities, I've got you covered. Get ready to crush it on video or stage, attract more clients, and bring in more money so you can run your business and live your life your way. I am so thrilled today to welcome Jennifer Stewart, founder and president of Syntax Strategic, and just an all-around awesome female entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me on the Camera Confident podcast.
Shirley, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And everything you just said about me, thank you. I feel it just about you. I remember the first time we met in person, which was too funny because I feel like we've known each other through mutual connections for forever. It was at the CTV studio, and I felt like we could have stayed and chatted forever. So I'm so glad to be invited.
Yeah. And, I thought I would maybe give a few notes about your bio. Top 25 people in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, of course, for our international audience. Top 40 under 40. You have founded not one, but several businesses. I mean, is there anything you haven't worked on as far as entrepreneurship, communication? Gosh. I mean, how do you do it all? On the Camera Confident podcast, we love to start with our elevator pitches. So you're a communications pro. Give us your elevator pitch. Who are you, Jen?
So I am a serial entrepreneur who's driven by community, impact, family, and entrepreneurship.
So for those who are listening internationally, all of our viewers on YouTube and listeners around the world who aren't familiar with Syntax Strategic, just give us a very quick, what is that all about? What do you do and who do you help?
Absolutely. So it's a 15-year-old communications and public relations company that works with clients all across the world to help with any of their communications, advocacy, media, or public relations needs. And we have an incredible team of 24 people now that work in design, digital, media relations, advocacy, training, crisis communications. And I can honestly say, Shirley, like we were chatting about before, it's a privilege to lead that team.
And you're also a podcast co-host. You founded the Honest Talk podcast, and that is all about women as well, empowering women. Tell us a little bit about the Honest Talk.
Absolutely. So it's a podcast I started with Catherine Clark, who's my co-founder and partner in crime. And we actually got together in 2019 just for coffee. And we're just talking about, there's all these platforms that talk about empowering women, but they're not really breaking down silos. They're not talking about challenges, frankly, or failures and how women overcame those failures, whether that's, a toxic workplace or a decision that set you back or a relationship that wasn't healthy for you. And how have we become resilient as women to lean into our best selves? And that doesn't mean you're a CEO per se. It means that you are a fulfilled individual that's, happy and confident with themselves. So we wanted to actually start with live events. And this is such a tale of COVID. So we toured a bunch of facilities actually all across Canada. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, the word of 2020, we had to pivot. So we pivoted to a podcast. We absolutely love those conversations. And then late last year, we launched a website for women that has curated daily content, essays, and just information that I think unifies us through shared experiences.
I want to rewind to your journey as an entrepreneur, because one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you, Jen, is just because of the journey that you've had. And there's no such thing. I've never met an entrepreneur that didn't have challenges and bumps along the road. So take us to the beginning. What initially sparked your interest in being an entrepreneur, and what was that like when you first started?
So I tell people, Shirley, I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and I truly believe that. I was working for a company, and you know what? It was a great place to work. I didn't dislike my job. But at the time, my boyfriend Now my husband was going to Afghanistan. We were navigating a bunch of life changes. And I thought, you know what? I think I can do this work on my own terms as a freelance communicator. And I too have a background in journalism. So I quit my job. I did not. So everyone thinking that you need this illustrious business plan, you do not. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that's a farce. I quit my job and I just worked hard. It was work ethic, it was putting in the time, and it was relationship development with clients so that they know that you're a trusted partner, you're going to be responsive, you're going to put good quality of work forward. And then if you want the truth, I'd love to say we grew completely intentionally. We do grow intentionally now, but I was pregnant. We got married, I had my first child, and I had what Kate Middleton had, where I was sick all the time. I would mute my phone to be sick. And I was like, you know what? If I don't have a mat leave and I'm going to be sick for 9 months every day, I need support. So I hired my first employee and then I hired my second. I had my first child and I thought, I love this. And that is when I really started being intentional about the business growth. Where do I want to take this? I'd like to take this from a solopreneur to an agency. And I realized really quickly, you know, as the fourth child in a really big, successful family, I realized what I'm good at. It's my intuition, it's my instinct, and it's my ability to deliver for clients. So I leaned into that for the next decade and a bit, and I've grown, I think, a very successful company. But it's been, and I tell this to my kids, lean into your strengths. And your strengths may not be present as a teen. They might not even be present in your early 20s. But like when you find that strength and it marries with a passion, lean into it. Because there's certain things I can't do. I'm a terrible athlete. I'm so klutzy, right? Like it's not this notion
like
that you
don't
need
have to run a literal marathon, right?
Exactly.
You're running a marathon, but you're not literally running. So
you're not
that's
literally running. So you don't have to be good at everything, but what you are good at, lean into it. And then, you know, it's really about good people. So regardless of whether you're an entrepreneur or it's your coworkers or it's your friend circle, it's quality over quantity. And it's, you know, I'm so fortunate with the people that I work with. And I very much intentionally rebranded from JS Communications to Syntax because I didn't want it to be the me show. I wanted it to be about the team. So to summarize, accidental entrepreneur who gained intentionality as she went.
It's like we fly the plane and we build the plane as we fly it, right?
Precisely.
But a critical part of your success, of course, was your networking ability, your communications ability, but also the fact that you took the time and made the effort to get visible. Can you talk about the earliest memory you have of, I mean, obviously you're a communications professional, so you know the importance of it, but for yourself? Because there's a lot of agency owners that do not seek the spotlight.
No.
So why was it important for you to seek the spotlight? And how did you do that when you were a nobody still?
It was incredibly, again, intentional. I actually, like I said, my strength is my strategic ability to think about what do I want to be in 5-10 years, and then what are the actual tangible steps to get there. So I knew at 25, nobody knew who I was. I needed to get involved. So I started volunteering with IABC, and it comes back again to work ethic.
Which is
International International Association of Business Communicators. So, and then I was invited onto their board because people, when you make yourself valuable, you become an asset. I got involved with a number of not-for-profits in the city. So I knew, again, I had to marry my need for impact, which was in my elevator pitch, with the strategic sense of I need to build my profile. And I'm not going to build my profile through sponsored content. I'm not going to build my profile yet through business awards because I'm not there yet. I need to build my profile by getting out in the community. And then I really had to get over this notion that people would judge me if I started contributing opinion editorials or being a talking head on TV, because I did. And I think a lot of women in particular have this feeling. I had this feeling that if I was too self-promotional, that people would think that I was not being authentic. But I think it's the opposite. I had to really train my brain to think, you know what, go do that speaking opportunity. Go on national TV as a leading crisis communications expert across Canada and North America, because you are that. And you're not doing it to satiate the Jen Stewart ego. You're doing it to drive business and credibility for Syntax and ultimately, as a business owner, drive revenue. And that was a like aha moment where I was like, you should be doing this. You need to do this for your company to grow and for your company to succeed.
When did you connect those dots? Because I think a lot of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs will that I talk to anyway will see this idea of getting visible as a nice to have. I'm going to build my business first. I need to establish my credibility. I
Yeah.
need a long track record of clients and testimonials and all the other
You don't.
things. But you don't. You can just
No.
start. So
No.
how soon did you connect those dots, and how did you connect those dots between visibility and revenue? Because there really is a straight line between those two things.
There's a complete straight line. I mean, people sometimes perceive the public relations efforts of yourself as fluffy, and I would say it's the exact opposite. It is one of the most strategic things that you can do to drive the credibility of your organization. The amount of clients that came because they would see me on TV, they liked the advice that I gave, which was sometimes, not the easy thing to say, and they wanted to work with us was overwhelming. So I think Shirley, I think as a communicator at heart, I always knew it. I just had to get rid of my own self-doubt. And I wish I had somebody like you telling me that. Because I told myself it, after a couple of years, like, Jen, you're being silly. Like, nobody's thinking about you as much as you think they are. When you're inside your own head and what will this person think or what will this person think? I can tell you they're not really spending that much time thinking about you. And B, everyone else is doing it or trying to do it. And if you have the ability to do it, then why wouldn't you? So I think it was psychological. Like somebody said once, and
Yeah.
it just resonated. So much of life is in our own heads, and we have to get out of our own way to make, the pathway forward for us to succeed. And if I could offer, I've got two pieces of advice for entrepreneurs. Get out of your own way of self-doubt. And I think this really resonates, particularly for women. Compartmentalize your life. When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, I'm at home. It's not always that linear and that clear, but I really try for it to be, or else I think I would go crazy. So get out of your own way and then compartmentalize where you are and be as present as you possibly can be.
Yeah, you've jumped the gun to my advice question, but I do want to go back to the challenge part because, and thank you for the compliment, but ironically, it was when I was a broadcast journalist that I was the most insecure about being on camera and worried about what people will think and, oh, is my story going to be as good as the other person's? And, I don't think I could have started or run the business I run today in my 20s.
No.
I wasn't mature enough. I wasn't developed enough. And I didn't have, frankly, the confidence
Yeah.
because I can tell you honestly, since I started Camera Confident, I've never once worried what anybody thought, ever. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even
Yeah.
cross my mind. And I'll bet
Yeah.
it doesn't cross your mind now with all of the accomplishments and accolades. But do you still have those moments of self-doubt, of limiting beliefs? Because they never really go away. Even 7, 8+ figure entrepreneurs still have those moments in visibility opportunities where
Yeah.
maybe they get butterflies or maybe it doesn't go
Of
perfectly.
course. Of
Can you
course.
give us some examples of some real moments where you have faced challenges either in the
Yeah.
past or even recently that you find continue to shape the persona that you have out there today?
Yeah, and I think when you speak about a persona, I think we need to make sure, and I think this is where a coach comes in, that the persona is truly you. Because how exhausting is it to be, and we've all been there, we've all done it, be somebody you're not. It's like, oh, your shoulders just drop when you get out of that room if you're trying to be that person. So I have never tried to be something that I'm not. But that doesn't mean there aren't moments of insecurity. There always are moments of insecurity. But I think that comes back to, as an example of like compartmentalizing. Like I will still do something today and I'll be like, oh, what's this person going to think? And then I compartmentalize. I'm like, you have to live, like, stop. You have to live your life not caring. So it's like almost like a meditation where that thought floats there and then you push it away. And I think even the most successful entrepreneurs would be lying to you if they said they don't have any insecurity. It's how do we manage it? And do we let it manifest in our head or not? And I remember I love him to death and he became a huge mentor and an incredible friend. But I remember my first, and this was over 12 years ago, I think, appearance on CTV National. I was sitting beside Don Martin and I was filling in for somebody and they called me last minute and I was so full of nerves. And he looked at me like right while they're counting down and he goes, well, let's see how this goes, rookie. And I was like, oh my goodness. But you know what switched? I thought, I'm going to prove him wrong. And
Yeah.
I delivered, and then I got a weekly segment on the show. So
Amazing.
I think that's the other thing. It's I'm going to prove people wrong. Like, and it's not about how you look or your past, but I was a 25, 6 foot female that had some detractors that I was going to prove them wrong. And not by being the flashiest, that was part of, but by mixing self-promotion with quality work and client relationships because you need both. And I actually thrive on that little feeling of like almost anxiety or nerves. I gave a
Mhm.
talk recently, and I do a lot of speeches now where, and this is rare, but I don't know why, but I felt nothing. And I was like, oh my God, you got to build up those nerves. Like that is when you've got the energy. That's when you've got that kind of like momentum and that motivation. And I just never, and I think this is why I love business. I love starting businesses. I never want to be at a point where I'm complacent or I don't have those little nerves in my belly because that is what drives me. I am not seeking comfort. I am seeking discomfort that I intentionally engage with. And that has been a key to success. Nothing I've done has been comfortable. Launching a business at 25, launching a podcast, and then investing my own money into the growth of its web platform. My husband and I are rebuilding a multi-million dollar grain facility. That's not comfortable, but there's not many rewards for people that make comfortable decisions.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of businesses you talked about right there, and a lot of things you're
Yeah.
doing. I do want to go back to this idea of a piece of advice that I got as a journalist, which at first really didn't sit well with me. And when I say it to entrepreneurs, sometimes they misinterpret it, and that is fake it till you make it.
Mm.
And I want to be clear here. I don't mean fake your expertise. I don't mean, because there's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of coaches in our
Yeah.
community. Don't fake the knowledge and the qualifications and the
Right. Right.
expertise, but fake the confidence to really, even if you have to convince yourself that you deserve to be there, you deserve to talk about this, you have a story that other people need to hear. And
Yeah.
that in itself is a belief that you really need to ingrain and
Yeah.
embody in order to be effective on video.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I'm curious, for you, what would you say is the secret sauce of the magnetism that you have? Because Jen, when you go on a stage, and I've seen you speak live in person, I've seen you speak on TV, I've heard you on the radio. I mean, you have a magnetism about
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And it's not always easy to reflect on your own image and how you come
Yeah.
across. But I guess from your perspective, what do you do before you go on
Yeah.
stage?
I love this question because I think we get so nitpicky about the words. Like, are we saying fake it till you make it? Are we saying believe in yourself? I 100% faked it for 5 to 7 years where I would walk into one of our clients and I love them to death and they've been with us for over 10 years is an association and the board is made up of very successful self-made men. And I was leading their board meetings and they're intimidating, they were extremely intimidating. And I would walk in there and I would tell myself, you belong to be here or you deserve to be here, but you also need to adjust your management style to theirs. You need to be like a chameleon so that they respect your presence. And I don't think that's being inauthentic. I think that's being smart to be like a chameleon to your audience while having that baseline foundation that's authentic to you. What do I do? So this is really funny. It shouldn't be embarrassing, but it kind of is. I'll be like, this is so cheesy. I love the song by Alicia Keys, This Girl's on Fire. So if I'm driving to a keynote, I'll be like blasting that. I will be like, you got this, crush it, prove them wrong. And I still do that. I do it less, but I'm like, it is that mirror self-talk where you compartmentalize, you push out. I don't have any thoughts of doubt before a speaking engagement because I have intentionally trained my brain to push them out. I'm not thinking, oh my God, what if I trip? What if I mess up? I'm thinking, you are going to crush this. And that's again very intentional. and it's not a natural state. That's not me actually thinking that. Like I'm pushing away all those, like I'm actually trying to mentally play a game with myself. So I think that has been key because, like I said before, so much of business, so much of life is in your head. So you need to train your head what to think and how to talk to yourself. My friends joke, I don't, and I'm not lying, I don't have negative self-talk. I will have some doubts, but I have almost zero negative self-talk. And it's not grandiose narcissistic talk. It's just when I get a thought into my head that's going to interfere with my path to success, I push it out.
Something that you've said a couple times has really piqued my interest, which is prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Now, that in itself implies that they
Yeah.
have a belief that you want to shift. So can you take us through what does that mean?
Well, I think it comes back to, coming onto the scene over 15 years ago without any name recognition. It's not me thinking they have all these preconceived notions. It's that they're neutral, right? And neutral, I want to prove neutral perceptions wrong. I want the perception to be great. So it's always coming in with the thought that these people don't know who I am. They may now, but they don't have a preconceived notion. So I'm going to prove that neutrality of who I am wrong. And when I leave, they're going to be impressed. They're going to want to chat with me and they're going to want to work with me. And that's what, I get, and I've said this to so many people, I don't need a personal pat on the back. I've got an amazing partner, an amazing friend group, an amazing family. If I really don't look for that kind of gratification externally, but what I do look for is crushing the public appearances so that people want to work with me and my team. So it's really about shifting that perception of neutrality. I'm not going to hire her, don't know who she is, don't know what her company does, to she knows what she's talking about. She would be an asset to our organization.
I love that. So, okay, before you listen to a song that gets you in the zone, and I do the same thing, it's not always the same song.
Yeah.
I have like a rotation
Got a
of some of
playlist.
my favorite songs, but I'll be in front of the mirror and I'll
Yeah.
be dancing. And dancing is a big part of how I usually prepare, especially for web things,
Yeah. Yeah.
things that are on the
Energy.
computer where you need even more energy, right? So when you step on that stage, when the camera goes on, what is going through your head? And you talked about there's always, the nerves are kind of go away the more you
Yeah.
do it. But, if you were giving advice to an entrepreneur, because some in our community are going on TV for the first time,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going on a podcast for the first time. How do you calm those nerves? How do you push out a
How
thought?
do you push it out? So there's things that are very tangible, like breathing. So I will work on my breath, and because you feel your heart rate start to rise. I do before you get on a stage, and then you don't want to be gasping for air. So there's tangible things like calming your breath. I will do a mental game where I pretend I'm called onto the stage 5 minutes before. And again, these are very tangible tricks. So I get that influx of like, oh my God, and the rise in the breath, and then it's done. So when I'm on stage, I've already gone through that initial name calling, and like, that's an art. Like it hasn't worked because it almost seems fake, but it has worked in some instances. Like you need to work on it. And then that gets rid of those initial nerves because you've already kind of mentally walked through the process. So when you are on there, you're ready, you're leaning in on your rehearsals. And also, I used to go up many years ago and try to read a script. I will be prepared. I hyper prepare, but I won't read a script because then you get so upset if you miss one word or you stumble, and people don't care. It's like when Beyonce falls on stage, she's right back up, right? Like they just want you to be authentic. And something I've learned, again, when I launched as a 25-year-old female, I would never inject humor because I connected being very serious with being very good in business. I learned very quickly people don't expect perfection, nor do they want perfection. They want a real person that has charisma, to your point, Shirley, that has magnetism. And you don't get that when you try to be something you're not. I've got two very different personas. When I'm at work, but when I'm at home, like I'm a goofy, fun-loving, family-oriented, friend-oriented person. And I think letting that persona shine through is incredibly important because no matter what sector you work in, everything is built on relationships. And as human beings, we gravitate towards people that are real. And I think people that, don't overly care about being cool, but they're just authentic to themselves. And if you think about people that you like, whether they're an actress or a celebrity or your friend group, you're not attracted to anybody that's in a box. You're attracted to people because they're different.
I love this idea of authenticity, and I would love to hear how you convey authenticity, especially
Yeah.
in a social media world where everything seems to be so fake. There's so many
Yeah,
copycats. There's, oh, this trend, or I've got to look like
totally.
this, or dance like this, or use this audio track because it's got this many. How do
Yeah.
you, and I know you counsel clients on this a lot, and you have
Hmm.
specific types of clients, but can you talk a little bit about how you maintain
Yeah.
authenticity in a time that people have never been more fake?
Such a great question. And I think you don't overthink it. We were chatting before this interview and you're like, I don't send questions. And I was like, great. Because I think if you overthink social media in particular, or you look at trends and you try to do, I would never, my dancing comment, you try to do the latest dance, you just look like you're hopping on a bandwagon. So just like the blinders are on to what other people are doing and just post things that are true to you. And I think that wins in the end of the day, right? Like you just, authenticity is not rehearsed. Authenticity is not really intentional. It's not something you sit with, like, I'm going to be authentic today. It's just bringing your true self to whatever stage or experience you're in at the moment. So I think it's really just being in the moment. That's authentic.
So another thing I really wanted to touch on is you have such a diversity of things that you work on as an entrepreneur in the business world. So you have your agency, you also
Mm-hmm.
have the honest talk. You're juggling not necessarily two different identities, but two very different entities. And there's more obviously,
Yeah.
but let's look at those two. So talk to me about how do you strategically balance your public image, which, as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, I mean, you want that what you see is what you get kind of image, but you've got your, CEO of this agency hat,
Yeah.
and then you've got your honest talk hat. Talk to us a little bit about how you navigate the visibility journey when you've got those
Yeah.
different things that you do.
I think it is about realizing that, particularly as women, we don't have to be one thing. And what drives me isn't necessarily agency life, it's business. I don't care about the persona of, oh, Jen runs four businesses. I just can't, I have a hard time saying no to ideas that I think could lead to something. And I've been fortunate enough with syntax, with other decisions, to be able to invest in these other ideas to get them off the ground. And I think I've kind of shifted, and I struggled with that identity a little bit from an agency owner to a serial entrepreneur. And I questioned whether that would hurt the agency because for so long I was so strongly associated with it, and I still am.
The
But
brand.
the brand,
Yeah.
exactly. But, I've come to the conclusion that that's one of those thoughts that I can't really worry what people think. If I just wanted to do one thing for the rest of my life, I would only run Syntax, which I love and adore, and is a very successful agency, and I love the team. But that wouldn't be true to who I am as a business person. And I think if anybody tries to put you in a box, they're not your people.
So being authentic is even more important because
Yeah,
it's kind of an insurance policy against your future entrepreneurial goals, right? Should you pivot,
absolutely.
I started an interior design business as my first business. I still do that at the time of this recording, but I also run this Camera Confident program and this podcast, and you can be all those things and
Yeah,
still be you wherever you show up. And from a
exactly.
communication standpoint, it's really about knowing the messaging of
Hmm.
each
Hmm.
of those things, and you deliver it in the same way, whether it's the messaging about syntax or the messaging about the honest talk. Like, you're still speaking the same way, so you can have a diversity of interests, a diversity of ventures, but at the end of the day, you're still you. And that's why having
Exactly.
that name recognition is so important, and why
Yeah,
getting visible is not just about trying to put all your eggs in one basket. So I'm
exactly.
curious about what your advice would be to entrepreneurs who are not yet visible. Perhaps they're trying to get into podcasts, media,
Hmm.
stages. What would your advice be on how do you even start?
So it's so easy with advice. Get out of your own way. And the sooner you do it, the quicker you're going to be happier you did. I wish I would have started earlier, and I started young. It was all my own insecurity as to why I didn't want to put myself out there in my 20s. So get out of your own way as soon as possible. And then how do you start? Honestly, I had the benefit of owning a media company that would pitch me, that would introduce me to producers, hire somebody to open those doors for you, because they're incredibly hard to open if people don't know you. I'd like to say the latter, but it's true. You need somebody that understands the media world, that understands how to put your name forward and pitch you in a way that is well received and not embarrassing to your brand. So get out of your own way and hire expertise.
Amazing. Well, Jen, this has been so wonderful. Do you have any other parting words of wisdom or anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Oh gosh, no, just honestly, just be yourself. And I know that sounds like something you would either tell your 2-year-old or your grandmother, but at the end of the day, work hard and stay true to yourself. I think the times that I have messed up the most in life have been the times where I was trying to impress somebody or I wasn't true to myself. So those are my parting words. And you're doing such a fantastic job. I love your podcast. I think your program's absolutely amazing. And I'm not doing this to promote you at all, Shirley, but I would say you're one of the best in the business. And if people are looking to get, you are. And if people are looking to get their names out there, they should definitely chat with you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. And if people are listening and they just would love to reach out, how can people get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So they can go to syntaxstrategic.ca. And there's a means to get in touch with me there. Or if they're curious about The Honest Talk, thehonesttalk.ca.
Amazing. And we will link all of that in the show notes so that you can check those out as well. Jen, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Shirley.
We'll have to have you back again. Really appreciate your time coming on the Camera Confident podcast and sharing all of your journey, the good, the bad, the up, the down. Loved hearing all about it and wish you all the best as you continue with your ventures. And I know The Honest Talk is growing in very exciting ways. So I'm excited to keep listening to that too.
Thanks for listening to Camera Confident. Help us grow by subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to follow me on LinkedIn at Shirley Engel and on Instagram at b.camera.confident. See you next time.